that tariffs are causing and will cause, not just to economies in some sort of macro sense, but also to individual citizens in Europe and individual people in the United States of America. So I look forward to taking stock today, and then I look forward tomorrow to travelling to Washington for engagement with the US administration also.
Thomas, just on the targeting of tech services and digital services, I suppose what is Ireland's view on that? Like, is that an absolute red line? Where do we sit in the debate, obviously, with the concentration of firms in Dublin?
So firstly, I think if you were to get into that space, it would be an extraordinary escalation at a time when we must be working for de-escalation. It is in many ways the nuclear option if you start talking about the use of the anti-coercion instruments and the likes. So what we need to do here is step by step, in a measured way, consider how best to respond. And I'm very clear from my engagement with multiple European counterparts and our ongoing engagement with the Commission that the majority view is certainly not in that space of going near the ACI at this moment in time, but much rather looking to see how we can respond in the first instance to the steel and aluminium tariffs, and then crucially how we can get to a position of negotiation.
Do you understand, is bourbon off that list of the steel and aluminium retaliatory tariffs? And second, on the much bigger list, I mean, tech services, the US just doesn't export enough goods to the EU for us to target tit for tat, which the Commission wants. So services will have to be on there eventually.
So in relation to the list responding to steel and aluminium, we've yet to see the final list. I did write to the Commission outlining Ireland's concerns and views as part of the consultation, and would have highlighted the issue of bourbon and questioned, I suppose, the strategic relevance of it now, considering the dynamic had shifted in US politics since 2018. I hope that's reflected in the finalised list this evening. But in many ways, your second question makes my point, because actually so much has moved on since then. If you think of it like this, I mean, President Trump announced steel and aluminium tariffs about 26 billion worth of a hit in Europe. He announced tariffs on cars about 75 billion. But actually the last announcement in the Rose Garden is now a further 380 million. So even Europe responding to steel and aluminium does need to be seen in relation to that. It's a very small and measured response when you look at the total quantum of what he's announced. You are right in terms of the scale of response that would be required if you were to get into the tit for tat. But again, the European Commission, and I believe the overwhelming majority of member states, which is not to get into tit for tat, it's not to accept that where we are now is the inevitable outcome, and actually seek to engage. And I really think economics is on our side here. No matter who's in the White House, no matter what anybody's ideological view are, a trading relationship of 1.6 trillion euro between the European Union and the United States of America really matters. And we're beginning to already see the US markets, and I think people in the United States themselves begin to convey that to their administration. So what's important here is that Europe reacts in a calm and measured way. Time is somewhat on our side. We've got to actually take this step by step, and that's what we're going to do, and that's certainly the message that Ireland will convey here today.
Thomas, it doesn't seem that the US administration, and Trump in particular, is in the mood to talk. What's the EU's approach then, where it seems that, we're talking to a bit of a brick wall?
I think we always have to be careful to not respond to kind of every comment made in the US administration, and I say that respectfully. But if I look at a range of things that we've heard in recent days, certainly the word negotiation and talks have been mentioned many times. In the executive order that President Trump himself signed, it provides space for people to engage and negotiate and get to a better place on tariffs. I heard the comments of the Commerce Secretary and the Treasury Secretary over the weekend in US media, both talking about engagement and negotiation. And indeed, Maros Sefcovic himself was in contact with Howard Lutnick with a view to seeing how to take this forward. So I think, again, it is important to stay calm here. It is important to take this step by step. The first thing to do today is for Europe to come together here in Luxembourg and demonstrate unity. I think that is really important. People like to often, I suppose, don't attach enough value or importance to European unity. People thought European unity wouldn't hold up in relation to Ukraine. It largely did. They thought it wouldn't hold up in relation to Brexit. It did. They thought it wouldn't hold up in relation to COVID. It did. And I've no doubt that European unity is our strength here, and European unity will be maintained. That's the first step. Second step then is for the Commission later today, probably tonight, to publish the countermeasures in relation to steel and aluminium. And then thirdly, in the background and constantly, is trying to find a way forward in terms of negotiation. So everything we do here today, everything we do in the days ahead, has to be to create the environment that brings the US administration to the table. And I think there are many, many reasons, not just here, but in the global markets, that are going to make that an inevitability of the time ahead.
Do you think an Irish minister will be able to come away with something from Washington, or better understanding from Washington than the EU so far has? Because those talks haven't worked so far, even though Šefčovič has been twice and called once.
Yeah, no, I think obviously from an Irish perspective we have a close relationship with the United States over many years. We have an understanding in many ways of the business culture that exists between our two countries, but we're very clear we're firmly and proudly members of the European Union, and anything that I say in Washington in the coming days will be in support of the European Union efforts to get to a place of engagement and negotiation. I really believe that if people get around the table, a way forward can be found. This is a trading relationship that matters, and Europe has been very clear we're up for a deal. I mean, President von der Leyen has talked about wanting to address any of the trade barriers that exist, wanting to buy more stuff from the United States and vice versa. We're up for a deal. I suppose the outstanding question is the United States up for one? And what we have to consider here today, what can we do strategically to help further, I suppose, increase our own leverage to get the United States around a negotiation table. So I look forward to having an engagement with Secretary Lutnick. I think it's always important to keep the lines of communication open, to share insights, to pick up the latest views, but also to really stress that the relationship that Ireland and the US have is two-way. Sometimes I think when it's commented on, it's commented in a way from times past. 200,000 jobs created by Irish firms in the US, every single state in the United States having jobs created by Irish companies investing more than $350 million in 1 year in the US economy. And even when you look to the US companies in Ireland, of which there are many, the US economy is benefiting from that, because 80% of what the pharma companies in Ireland send back to the US aren't finished products. They go back into American factories where value is added, workers are hired, taxes are paid. So the relationship is much more interdependent and interconnected than perhaps headlines in the United States sometimes indicate.
Okay, thanks so much, folks.
Some of your colleagues have suggested that it might be necessary to support affected industries, especially when you look at European markets today. Companies are really feeling the effect of these tariffs. Is that something that Ireland is interested in? Are there any industries that you think need to be targeted with support?
I think at a European level we're going to really have to accelerate conversations around competitiveness and productivity. There's an awful lot we can do in terms of controlling what we can control at a European level that would directly support European industry, European jobs and the European economy. If there's a need to support individual sectors as we go through this global financial challenge and the economic turmoil that President Trump's announcements have caused, Ireland certainly will always keep that under review. We've a proud track record in our country of supporting business, supporting enterprise. But I want to say this, and I say this to businesses in Ireland, and I think businesses right across Europe. There is no scheme that any government that can devise that would be better than trying to mitigate the damage of tariffs, and that's where the focus has to be in the here and now.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll see you later. Cheers.
Hi, how are you? We support European Commission in a dialogue with our U.S. partner. Both of our economies are highly interrelated. There are numerous investments on both sides of the Atlantic, and we all reap the benefits out of this partnership. Therefore, I believe that we should invest more into this relationship on both sides. Thank you. Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. This FAC is very important today here in Luxembourg. In this context, very troubled, of course, because of a very aggressive and arbitrary trade policy from Donald Trump and the United States. In this context, French position has been very clear. We are against any trade war, neither with the United States nor with any other country, and we do always prefer cooperation to confrontation. And this must be very clear, because our end goal remains the same, is to negotiate de-escalation and negotiate back to where things were. And if it's not possible, of course, European Union must react firmly and must react proportionately. This is what we're going to talk about the transatlantic relation, but we need one condition to be credible and to showcase that Europe can be a genuine strength, is to remain united. that the European members remain united in this period. Very tough moment, very important period for the European unity and for the trend it is and it has to showcase the world. And about the second topic, very important, we have to discuss today. It's about relationship between EU and China. About that, France's position, of course, is always very clear. We need to rebalance trade relations between EU and China in line with our industrial, economic security and low carbon agendas. And at the same time, we need to pursue our very assertive trade policy with them, and especially fighting against overcapacity, especially during this very specific trade war time. So this is what we're going to talk, but I have to say that it is very good news that Maroš Šefčovič, Jean-Noël Barrot had great diplomatic exchanges these last days with Chinese authorities, because we need to talk with them at the very specific moment.
How can you say it's not a trade war when Donald Trump launches tariffs 2 days after the visit of the commissioner?
What was the beginning of your question?
How can you say it's not a trade war already?
I'm saying it is. I'm saying it is a trade war.
We have to avoid it.
Yeah, we have. We have to. But it is now. What we have to do is to negotiate back where things were. This is our end goal, because it's good for our own GDP growth, for our own jobs, and for American ones. So this is our end goal. I would never say that we have to pursue an agenda of escalating the situation.
And do you see China becoming a more significant economic partner with the European Union in view of what's happening with global trade right now? And then the second question is, you talked about endgame. We talked about how flawed the calculations are for the tariffs that are coming from the White House. But in reality, what is Donald Trump's endgame when the rest of the world is saying that this is not good?
Right. For the second question, I think it's not for me. I think it's for him. But for the first one, yes. But we have an agenda with China. We have an open business agenda. But what I'm saying is that we have to fight against overcapacities, and we have to protect Europe, of course, from overcapacities at the very moment of a trade war that can have, of course, consequences that can be very, very complicated for Europe. So this must be a discussion very important today between us.
In this the proposal of zero tariffs, Musk was bringing this up over the weekend. You said you want to negotiate back to where we are, but do you want to go further?
I think it's a great idea.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Les contre-mesures que la Commission propose en termes de contenu et en termes de calendrier, celles qui vont arriver dans les prochaines semaines, est-ce que les modèles...
Sur le calendrier?
Calendrier sur le contenu, la liste des produits ciblés.
Et je crois qu'il faut tout mettre sur la table et absolument rien exclure. Le calendrier, vous l'avez compris, se fait en 2 temps. D'abord sur la réponse suite aux tarifs sur l'acier et l'aluminium, qui est effectivement prévu sur une dizaine de jours. Et puis nous avons jusqu'à la fin du mois pour proposer une réponse complète et une réponse de deuxième niveau par rapport à ces tarifs dits réciproques. Et donc là-dessus, je pense qu'il nous faut n'exclure aucune option sur les biens, sur les services, quelle que soit la façon de l'aborder, et ouvrir la boîte à outils européenne qui est très complète et qui peut être extrêmement agressive également en retour. Je pense évidemment à l'instrument anti-coercition.
Vous pouvez expliquer ce que la France amène aujourd'hui à la table? Quelle est l'idée de la France et qu'est-ce que vous apportez aujourd'hui avec vous?
Et la position de la France, encore une fois, c'est d'abord de tout faire pour préférer la coopération, la négociation à l'escalade et à la confrontation. Là-dessus, il faut que les choses soient très claires. Personne n'a à gagner à continuer sur cette voie-là. Évidemment pas les États-Unis eux-mêmes, mais l'Europe non plus, et les autres zones du monde non plus. Si, pour parvenir à cela, il faut que l'on montre ce qu'on est capable de faire en termes de riposte, alors l'Europe doit savoir le faire. C'est ça la position de la France, avec toutes les options sur la table, sans oublier, ce que je disais tout à l'heure, sans oublier de savoir protéger aussi notre propre continent des conséquences des détournements de routes commerciales qui pourraient avoir lieu suite à cette guerre commerciale. Je pense bien sûr aux surcapacités asiatiques et notamment chinoises. On va en parler justement aujourd'hui. I do. I think everything has to be discussed today. Everything, with no taboo. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe. Merci.
Fa freddo? Però c'è il sole.
Ma molto freddo.
Sì, però c'è il sole. Bene.
Ministro, cosa si aspetta da questa riunione?
Io credo che si debba lavorare per evitare assolutamente una guerra commerciale, perché sarebbe esiziale per gli Stati Uniti e esiziale anche per le nostre imprese. Noi dobbiamo proteggere le nostre esportazioni, dobbiamo proteggere il nostro sistema industriale, quindi dobbiamo trattare con gli Stati Uniti. Lo deve fare l'Europa unita, l'Italia quindi sosterrà tutte le iniziative del commissario Šefčovič, nel quale riponiamo grande fiducia per cercare di trovare un accordo. L'ideale sarebbe zero tariffe, la via intermedia potrebbe essere la riduzione dei tassi del 10% da parte americana. Certo, una trattativa che dobbiamo fare sempre a schiena dritta, con un'Europa unita. L'Italia pensa che si possa lavorare anche forse con una dilazione delle posizioni della reazione da parte europea, c'è una lista congelata, noi lavoreremo comunque perché la lista non sia perniciosa per le nostre imprese, cioè dazi su prodotti che provano una reazione da parte americana. I mercati vedete come stanno reagendo, quindi c'è un momento importante dove dobbiamo dimostrare grande equilibrio, grande serietà, evitare reazioni scomposte che provocherebbero danni non solo al commercio americano ma anche al commercio italiano ed europeo. Quindi grande equilibrio, voglia di lavorare insieme all'Unione Europea, quindi non prenderemo nessun atteggiamento che sarà in contrasto con l'Unione Europea, ma daremo il nostro contributo di equilibrio e di assoluta contrarietà a una guerra dei dazi. Trattativa a schiena dritta.
Non bisogna essere in due per trattare?
Certo, la trattativa però è aperta perché c'è il commissario Šefčovič ha già avviato una interlocuzione con gli Stati Uniti, mi pare che un dialogo che non si è interrotto. Noi dobbiamo andare avanti, ripeto, con la schiena dritta, ma cercando sempre e comunque una trattativa. Io mi auguro che anche la missione che ci sarà nelle prossime settimane del Presidente del Consiglio possa essere utile. Tutti quanti noi dobbiamo, come Stati membri, convincere gli Stati Uniti ad avere una posizione dialogante e poi naturalmente la trattativa la fa la Commissione europea. Quindi lavoriamo in sintonia.
Ci sono dei segnali da parte americana che vogliono trattare?
Ma qualche segnale di dialogo anche durante il colloquio lungo della scorsa settimana del commissario Šefčovič è arrivato da parte statunitense, quindi noi dobbiamo incrementare, sostenere e rafforzare questi tentativi facendo capire agli americani che vogliamo discutere e trattare. Non significa piegare la testa, tutt'altro, significa stare, ripeto, a schiena dritta, ma per cercare di trovare una soluzione che sia utile alle nostre imprese. Non possiamo permettere un danno a chi intraprende e a chi esporta. Noi stiamo lavorando come governo ad una serie di iniziative, compreso il rilancio dell'export in altre parti, vogliamo rimanere negli Stati Uniti, domani ci sarà un grande evento a Caserta con le imprese olandesi, italiane e olandesi, perché vogliamo rafforzare il nostro export anche in un paese che è uno dei principali luoghi dove c'è un'esportazione all'interno del mercato unico, quindi rafforzare il mercato unico. Poi sarò questa settimana in India e in Giappone, anche lì per andare a rinforzare la nostra presenza su questi mercati. Cioè il governo italiano ha una strategia per proteggere le imprese. Faremo di tutto perché possa esserci il minor danno possibile dai dazi che sono stati annunciati. Secondo noi si è trattato di un errore, ma lavoreremo perché questo errore non provochi danni eccessivi al nostro sistema imprenditoriale. Quindi anche facendoci portatori di idee positive all'interno della Unione Europea, valuteremo quali saranno le migliori. Stasera ci sarà una riunione anche a Palazzo Chigi tra noi ministri competenti per materia con il Presidente del Consiglio, quindi valuteremo tutte le iniziative più idonee per sostenere il mondo imprenditoriale, che da domani pomeriggio cominceremo ad ascoltare e incontrare per vedere cosa chiedono loro a noi. Contemporaneamente però lavoriamo, va avanti il piano d'azione del Ministero degli Esteri e del Commercio internazionale, dicevo già domani ci sarà il primo evento con gli olandesi, con il Ministro degli Esteri olandesi nella Reggia di Caserta, quindi noi siamo mobilitati, siamo al lavoro, non facciamo chiacchiere, ci occupiamo piuttosto che preoccuparsi, perché preoccuparsi serve a poco, occuparsi invece è il modo migliore per tutelare il nostro sistema imprenditoriale e la nostra economia.
Non c'è preoccupazione per le borse che stanno crollando per terzo giorno?
Stiamo lavorando, stiamo avviando tutte le iniziative possibili, convincendo anche gli altri, sono qui come Vicepresidente del Consiglio anche per dire all'Europa: dobbiamo affrontare in maniera determinata la questione, cercando di arrivare ad una trattativa. Il mio sogno è quello di avere un mercato europeo e transatlantico che sia un mercato unico dove non ci siano tariffe. Noi dobbiamo arrivare a questo obiettivo.
Ministro, una domanda, scusi, per quanto riguarda...
Poi dobbiamo andare alla riunione.
Se dovessero per esempio aumentare le importazioni dagli Stati Uniti, potrebbe essere una soluzione?
Io l'ho sempre detto, poi qualcuno è insorto perché ho detto che possiamo aumentare le importazioni, comprare più negli Stati Uniti, internazionalizzare di più, cioè investire di più negli Stati Uniti è un modo per proteggere il nostro export. Mi sembra una cosa per la quale non serve una grande intelligenza, mi sembra una scelta giusta, che non significa delocalizzare. Io sono contrarissimo alle delocalizzazioni, ma sono favorevole alle internazionalizzazioni. Da qui il lavoro di domani con gli olandesi, di questa settimana con l'India e con il Giappone.
Una pregunta en español o inglés.
En español, como quieres.
Vale. Ahora que empezamos las negociaciones con Estados Unidos, ¿tiene Italia alguna línea roja o está dispuesto a hablar sobre todo los estándares medioambientales, tecnología, incluso...
Hablamos, ahora empezamos con la lista ya que está en la comisión. Vamos adelante, creo que es más importante hablar, porque una guerra comercial no ayuda a nosotros, no ayuda a los americanos. Por eso es muy importante hablar. Claro, no bajamos la cabeza, pero hablar es la solución mejor para defender las empresas grandes, pequeñas y medianas.
Lei per il congelamento dell'eventuale lista di contromisure intanto?
No, vediamo quello che sarà, si può magari pensare ad un rinvio al 30, ma certamente non è che noi ci opponiamo. Sosterremo il commissario Šefčovič, questo è chiaro, vediamo se si può rinviare di qualche settimana in modo che ci sia più tempo per il dialogo, ma questa lista è una lista già congelata, quindi non è una reazione di posizione, direi, quindi un segnale per dire noi siamo qui, difendiamo le nostre imprese, ma siamo sempre pronti a discutere, che è la cosa secondo me fondamentale per tutelare l'economia in generale, l'economia occidentale. Dobbiamo essere certi che comunque l'Europa non si dividerà, noi lavoreremo per tenere unita l'Europa in questo momento così complicato, quindi la posizione italiana è molto chiara, daremo il nostro contributo, diremo quello che pensiamo, ma non faremo nessun atto che possa mettere in difficoltà il commissario Šefčovič, nel quale noi riponiamo la massima fiducia. Vado perché se no non partecipo alla riunione.